Hello, my friend. Welcome to Dreamy Nights. I'm so glad you have found your way here to this quiet corner of the evening. Tonight, we shall drift together into a gentle story, one that feels like cool stone and silver rain, where the echoes of the past harmonize with the rhythm of your breath. Everything here is safe, ancient, and still. So settle in, adjust your blankets, and take a long, slow breath. Let the world outside grow soft and distant. Before we begin our journey into the heart of the Roman night, if these quiet moments bring you peace, you might like to gently subscribe so you can return whenever you wish to rest. Your presence here truly means a lot. When you're ready, our story begins. The night air over the city of Rome carries a singular weight, a velvet density that feels both vast and protective. High above, or the moon is a pale, frosted coin, partially veiled by a slow-moving procession of charcoal-colored clouds. The light it casts is not sharp, but diffused, turning the horizon into a soft gradient of indigo and slate. At the edge of the ancient forum, where the modern world finally falls into a deep, respectful silence, the Via Sacra stretches out like a ribbon of dark glass. The basalt paving stones, worn smooth by the passage of countless centuries, begin to glisten as the first few drops of a midnight rain descend from the heavens. Each droplet makes a faint, percussive tink as it meets the stone, a tiny, crystalline note in a symphony that is only just beginning. The rain is not a storm of urgency, but a slow, methodical blessing, cooling the heat that the marble has held since the afternoon sun. While as the moisture settles into the pores of the rock, a scent begins to rise. The deep mineral aroma of wet earth mixed with the faint, sweet ghost of dried wild grass. It is the smell of time itself, waking up in the dampness. The path ahead is wide and steady. There is no need for haste. Each step is met by the solid, unyielding embrace of the earth. To the left and right, the shadows of fallen columns rest in the tall grass, their fluted surfaces catching the silver lunar glow. The water pools in the shallow depressions of the road, creating small, dark mirrors that capture the flickering light of the sky. In these tiny pools, the world is inverted, a silent, liquid version of the ruins above, where every ripple is a slow-motion expansion of peace. The silence here is not an absence of sound, but a presence of layer upon layer of softness. There is the distant, muffled sigh of the wind through the umbrella pines on the Palatine Hill, and the closer, more intimate sound of water sliding down the side of a weather-beaten pedestal. It is a texture of sound that encourages the shoulders to drop and the mind to uncurl. The heavy basalt stones underfoot feel reliable, a foundation that has supported the weight of dreams for thousands of years. As the rain becomes a steady, rhythmic drizzle, the atmosphere shifts into one of complete isolation. The modern city, with its humming lights and restless energy, feels as though it belongs to another dimension entirely. Here, under the watchful eye of the moon, there is only the silver grey stone and the cooling touch of the mist. The air feels clean, washed of all noise and distraction. It is a sanctuary of grey and blue, a place where the history of the world pauses to take a long, restorative breath. Looking toward the horizon, the arch of Septimius Severus begins to emerge from the gloom, its grand silhouette a testament to permanence. It stands as a gateway, not just into the heart of the forum, but into a deeper state of relaxation. The rain glides down its intricate friezes, tracing the lines of carved processions and forgotten names, smoothing everything into a singular, dark hue. The world is becoming monochromatic, a study in shadow and light, removing the complexity of color and replacing it with the simplicity of form. There is a profound sense of belonging in this stillness. The rain does not ask anything of the stone, and the stone asks nothing of the night. They simply exist together in a state of mutual acceptance. The moisture seeps into the moss that clings to the base of the monuments, turning the vibrant green into a deep, somber emerald. Every leaf of the nearby acanthus plants bows slightly under the weight of a single shimmering bead of water before letting it fall to the earth with a soft, wet thud. The journey forward is one of gradual release. With every footfall on the wet basalt, a little more of the day's tension is left behind, dissolved by the rain and absorbed by the ancient road. The air is cool against the skin, a refreshing contrast to the warmth of the blankets waiting at the end of the thought. It is a slow, meditative progression toward the center of the ruins, where the shadows are longest and the silence is deepest. As the clouds drift further, the moonlight catches a single large puddle in the center of the path. The water is perfectly still for a heartbeat, reflecting the arch and the stars, before a new raindrop breaks the surface. The ripples move outward in perfect concentric circles, reaching for the edges of the stone, growing wider and thinner until they vanish into the dark. It is a reminder of how peace spreads, starting from a single point of stillness and moving quietly through the entire being. The pillars of the nearby temple stand like tall, silent guardians, their tops lost in the low-hanging mist. They do not move, they do not flicker, they simply are. And in their presence, it becomes easier to simply be. The rain continues its gentle work, a steady, hushing sound that blankets the forum in a layer of tranquility. The world is at rest, the stones are cooling, and the night is just beginning to reveal its deepest secrets of peace. Moving deeper into the heart of the forum, the steady patter of the rain begins to change its pitch, taking on a resonant, hollow quality as the path nears the massive walls of the Curia Julia. This was once a place of voices and decrees, but tonight it is a cathedral of shadows. The heavy bronze doors, dark with the patina of centuries, stand closed and silent, their weathered surfaces glistening under the fine veil of the midnight storm. The air here is noticeably cooler, tucked away from the open sky, carrying the sharp, clean scent of damp brick and the ancient, metallic tang of oxidized metal. Above, the terracotta roof tiles catch the rain, channeling the water into silver streams that spill from the eaves and splash into the waiting earth below. Oh, there is a profound sense of weight in this specific corner of the ruins. The bricks are thick and unyielding, stacked with a precision that has defied the erosion of time. To lean against such a wall is to feel the literal pulse of history, a cold and steady vibration that grounds the spirit. The moisture has turned the dusty red of the clay into a deep, saturated crimson, a color that seems to absorb the moonlight rather than reflect it. A low, distant roll of thunder travels through the ground, more felt than heard. It is a soft, percussive hum that vibrates through the soles of the feet, a reminder of the sky's immense power, yet it carries no threat. It is the sound of the earth settling into its bed. In the wake of the thunder, the silence of the Senate House feels even more absolute. But the moss that clings to the mortar between the bricks is plush and saturated, drinking deeply and turning a vivid dark emerald in the gloom. Small tactile details reveal themselves in the half-light. A single fern has taken root in a high crevice of the masonry, its delicate fronds bowing rhythmically as each drop of rain hits its tip. The water traces the serrated edges of the leaf before gathering into a heavy, perfect sphere at the point, hanging for a suspended moment of tension before surrendering to gravity. It is a slow, repetitive process, a study in patience and the gentle persistence of nature. One drop follows another, a liquid clock marking time in a place where hours no longer matter. The soundscape here is layered and rich. There is the sharp clack of water hitting a flat marble fragment on the ground, the softer hiss of rain falling into the thirsty soil, and the low, melodic gurgle of a blocked drain nearby, where a small whirlpool has formed. These sounds do not compete. They weave together into a tapestry of white noise that blankets the mind. The rhythmic quality of the rainfall acts as a natural metronome for the breath, encouraging each inhalation to be slow, deep, and filled with the scent of wet stone. In the niches of the building, where the rain cannot reach, the dust remains dry and gray, a soft powder that has settled over the ages. There is a beauty in this contrast, the wet and the dry, the cold and the sheltered. It is a reminder that even in the midst of a storm, there are pockets of absolute stillness to be found. The shadows in these alcoves are thick and velvety, providing a visual resting place for eyes tired from the glare of the world. The mind begins to drift, reflecting on the nature of these walls. They have seen the rise and fall of empires, the change of seasons, and thousands of nights exactly like this one. There is a comfort in their permanence. They do not change with the winds of the day. They simply remain, weathered and wise. To be in their presence is to realize that the worries of the present are but passing clouds, while the foundation of the self is as sturdy as this ancient brickwork. As the rain intensifies for a brief moment, the visual world blurs. The outlines of the neighboring columns soften into hazy charcoal pillars. The mist rises from the ground in thin, ghostly ribbons, swirling around the base of the curia before dissipating into the dark. Oh, the world feels fluid, a dreamscape made of water and memory. The steady drumming on the roof tiles becomes a hypnotic drone, a sound that pulls the consciousness further away from the surface of thought and deeper into a state of heavy, comfortable rest. The moisture on the bronze doors has created long, dark streaks that look like tears of joy, celebrating the return of the water to the parched stone. The texture of the metal is rough and honest, marked by the touch of history. There is a tactile satisfaction in imagining the cool, damp surface against one's palm, a connection to something that cannot be shaken or moved. Slowly, the rain begins to find a new rhythm, a steady and predictable hum that signals a long night of replenishment. The air is thick with the essence of the Roman earth, a scent that is both heavy and clearing. Every breath feels like a cleansing, a washing away of the unnecessary. The curia stands as a silent witness to this transformation, its shadows growing longer and more protective as the moon retreats behind a thicker veil of clouds. The night is a vast, cooling embrace, and here, under the eaves of the Senate, the world is perfectly, beautifully still. Moving away from the heavy, masculine lines of the Senate House, the air begins to change, softening into a fragrance that is both ancient and floral. We are entering the sanctuary of the House of the Vestals, where the geometry of stone gives way to the gentle curves of an inner courtyard. Here, the rain does not feel like a force of nature, but like a tender gardener tending to a secret, sacred place. The scent of wet earth is joined by the faint, peppery perfume of boxwood and the ghost of wild roses that cling to the crumbling walls. The soundscape shifts as well. Instead of the hollow drumming on bronze and brick, there is the delicate blink and chime of water falling from stone cornices into the rectangular pools that once mirrored the sky for the priestesses of the hearth. These basins, lined with moss-covered marble, are now overflowing, their edges blurred by the rising water. The surface of each pool is alive with 1,000 tiny, expanding rings, a visual hum that mirrors the rhythmic descent of the rain. The water is dark and deep, holding the reflection of the surrounding arches in a trembling, liquid embrace. Along the perimeter of the courtyard, headless statues of white marble stand on their pedestals, their surfaces smoothed by centuries of wind and weather. The rain gives them a translucent quality, as if the stone itself were beginning to breathe. Water traces the folds of their carved robes, gathering in the deep grooves before spilling over in slow, crystalline ribbons. These figures do not feel like remnants of a lost era. They feel like quiet companions, standing in a timeless vigil that requires no words and no motion. Now, in the center of the garden, the soil is dark and rich, having drunk its fill. Small ferns nestle at the base of the columns, their fronds heavy and glistening with moisture. There is a tactile pleasure in imagining the texture of this space. The contrast between the slick, cold marble and the soft, yielding dampness of the moss. One could almost reach out and feel the coolness of the water as it drips from a stone leaf, a sensation that is both refreshing and profoundly calming. The architecture here is more intimate, designed for reflection and the quiet passage of hours. The arches create a rhythmic series of shadows that dance with the flickering light of the moon. As the rain falls, it creates a visual curtain between the inner garden and the rest of the forum, a barrier made of mist and sound that seals this sanctuary away from the world. It is a place where one can simply exist, unobserved and unhurried, held in the cradle of history. A quiet reflection settles over the scene, a thought about the nature of fire and water. This was once the home of the eternal flame, a light that was never meant to go out. Now the hearth is cold, yet the sanctuary is filled with the life-giving force of the rain. It is a reminder that beauty persists through different forms, and that stillness can be just as powerful as the brightest fire. The rain is a different kind of eternal rhythm, one that returns season after season to wash the stone and nourish the hidden seeds of the earth. The moisture on the statues has a way of highlighting the craftsmanship of the past, the way the stone was shaped to mimic the flow of silk or the curve of a shoulder. There is a sense of great care here, a dedication to beauty that survives long after the hands that carved it have returned to the earth. This realization brings a sense of peace, a feeling that even when things change, the essence of grace remains. The statues stand in their silence, accepting the rain with a dignity that is contagious. The night air is heavy now, filled with the mist that rises from the saturated ground. It feels like a soft weight on the eyelids, a gentle pressure that encourages them to close. The sound of the dripping water is hypnotic, a natural lullaby that loops without end. Drip, ripple, stillness. The sequence repeats, a mantra for the senses. The world is reduced to this small courtyard, this silver rain, and this profound ancient peace. As the moon disappears behind a bank of heavy indigo clouds, the light in the garden fades to a deep, velvety gray. The statues become ghosts of white, and the pools turn into shadows of ink. The transition is seamless, a gradual descent into a deeper layer of the night. The rain continues its steady, rhythmic work, a constant companion in the dark. The heart of the sanctuary is a place of total release. There is no more past to remember and no future to anticipate. There is only the cool breath of the Rome midnight and the sound of water meeting stone. The senses are full, the mind is quiet, and the body feels as heavy and settled as the marble pillars that have watched over this garden for 2,000 years. Moving beyond the sanctuary of the garden, the path begins to descend slightly, leading toward the towering silhouettes of the pillars of Saturn. These massive columns of granite and marble rise like the ribs of an ancient giant, reaching up into a sky that has now turned a deep, saturated violet. In this part of the forum, the rain underwent a subtle transformation. The heavy droplets that drummed against the curia and chimed in the vestal's courtyard have shifted into a fine, cooling mist, an ethereal vapor that hangs in the air like a veil of spun silver. This mist clings to everything it touches, softening the sharp edges of the stone and blurring the transition between the earth and the heavens. The atmosphere here is one of monumental silence. While the other areas of the ruins felt intimate or protected, the pillars of Saturn evoke a sense of vast, open timelessness. The air is remarkably still, despite the moisture it carries. Each breath taken here feels like drinking in the very essence of the night, cool, clean, and infused with the scent of ancient minerals and wet dust. The smell is distinctive. It is the fragrance of stone that has stood for millennia, a dry, flinty bass note now awakened by the dampness of the midnight air. As one gazes upward at the columns, the scale of the architecture becomes a source of profound comfort. There is something deeply settling about standing in the presence of such immense, unmoving weight. These pillars have held their ground through 1,000 winters and 1,000 storms. They do not sway. They do not falter. To the weary mind, they offer a sturdy anchor, a promise that some things in this world are truly permanent. The mist swirls around the fluted grooves of the columns, catching the faint, filtered light of the moon to create a ghostly luminescence that seems to emanate from within the stone itself. The soundscape in this section is perhaps the most tranquil of all. The modern city of Rome, though physically close, has been completely erased by the heavy silence of the monumental stone. The muffling effect of the mist acts as a natural soundproofing, absorbing any stray echoes from the world beyond the forum's walls. All that remains is the microscopic sound of the mist settling, a soft, almost imperceptible hiss that feels like the world is whispering a secret. It is the sound of absolute seclusion, a sanctuary where the only movement is the slow, graceful drift of the vapor. A tactile exploration of this scene reveals a landscape of fascinating textures. The granite of the pillars is rough and honest, its surface pitted by the centuries, yet now coated in a slick, cool film of moisture. Nearby, a fragment of an architrave lies in the tall, damp grass. To run a hand over its surface would be to feel the intricate carvings of acanthus leaves and geometric patterns, now smoothed by the gentle erosion of time and the soft touch of the rain. The grass itself is heavy and bowed, each blade laden with a row of tiny, perfect orbs of water that look like scattered diamonds in the dark. The mind naturally wanders into a quiet reflection on the nature of cycles. Saturn, the god of time and the harvest, once watched over the wealth of an empire from this very spot. Now, the wealth is of a different kind, a wealth of silence, of space, and of the freedom to rest. The pillars no longer support a roof of timber and gold, but a roof of stars and clouds. This shift from the material to the atmospheric feels like a release, a stripping away of the unnecessary until only the essential remains. It is a lesson in the beauty of letting go, of allowing the structures of the past to become a playground for the elements. In this space, the concept of doing is entirely replaced by the concept of being. There is nothing to achieve here, no destination to reach, and no task to complete. The journey through the pillars is a slow, deliberate crawl toward the center of one's own stillness. The mist continues to settle on the skin, a refreshing and cooling sensation that draws the heat from the limbs and replaces it with a heavy, pleasant lethargy. The body begins to feel as though it is becoming part of the landscape, steady, quiet, and deeply rooted in the earth. The visual palette is a study in monochromatic depth. The dark silhouettes of the ruins stand out against the midnight blue horizon, creating a series of frames that capture the emptiness of the night. Occasionally, a break in the clouds allows a single beam of moonlight to strike a fallen capital, turning the white marble into a glowing ember of light in the sea of shadows. These small highlights serve only to emphasize the depth of the surrounding dark, making the world feel even more private and secure. There is a tactile rhythm to the mist as it moves. It gathers on the overhanging cornices, or forming larger drops that eventually become too heavy to hold on. They fall through the air in slow motion, landing in the soft mud or on a flat stone with a muffled thud that underscores the silence. Each drop is a punctuation mark in a long, unhurried sentence of peace. The world is exhaling, and the air is thick with that collective breath. As the journey continues through the shadows of the Saturnian pillars, a sense of deep, meditative gratitude begins to take hold. Gratitude for the stone that remains, for the rain that cleanses, and for the night that provides a space for such profound rest. The columns are like giant guardians of sleep, their shadows stretching out over the path like long, dark blankets. To walk among them is to be invited into their dream, a dream of endurance, of silence, and of the infinite beauty found in the quietest hours of the night. The mist thickens slightly, turning the world into a soft, focused dreamscape. The distant hills of Rome are gone. The edges of the forum have dissolved, and all that exists is this singular, monumental moment. The temperature has dropped just enough to make the thought of a warm bed feel like a distant, glowing goal. Yet for now, the coolness of the Roman night is exactly where one needs to be. The weight of the stone, the softness of the mist, and the indigo sky work together to create a state of total, unshakable tranquility, leaving the towering pillars of Saturn behind. The path begins a gentle, almost imperceptible ascent toward the shadow of the Palatine Hill. Here, the ruins of the Basilica Julia stretch out in a vast open expanse of marble flooring, a rhythmic grid of stone that once hummed with the vibrant life of a bustling city. Tonight, however, the basilica is a sea of silver and ink, its floor polished to a mirror-like finish by the persistent, soft rain. The soundscape undergoes another shift as we enter this wide, unroofed space. The rain no longer drums or chimes. Instead, it creates a continuous shushing whisper as it meets the flat, expansive marble. A sound like the collective exhale of 1,000 sleeping witnesses. The air here feels exceptionally spacious, as if the very atmosphere has expanded to match the horizontal reach of the ruins. The scent is shifting once more. The mineral sharpness of the granite pillars is replaced by a softer, sweeter aroma of damp limestone, and the subtle green scent of ivy that clings to the rising slopes of the hill nearby. It is a fragrance that suggests growth and endurance, a living layer of nature slowly reclaiming the geometry of man. The temperature remains a constant, soothing cool, a gentle touch against the skin that encourages the body to soften and the breath to slow to the pace of the falling mist. As we move across the marble checkerboard of the basilica floor, the tactile details of the stone become a focal point of meditation. Underfoot, the marble is remarkably smooth, its edges rounded by 2 millennia of footsteps and the slow, patient work of the elements. In the low light of the midnight moon, the stone reveals its hidden textures, veins of gray and amber that wind through the white like frozen lightning. The rain fills the shallow grooves carved by ancient game players into the steps, creating tiny, dark reservoirs of water that shimmer with every passing breath of wind. To imagine the touch of this wet marble is to feel a deep, grounding coldness that draws the restlessness out of the muscles and replaces it with a heavy, pleasant stillness. The visual rhythm of the basilica is one of repetition and peace. Rows of broken column bases stand like the markers of a giant's garden, each one casting a long, soft shadow across the wet floor. These shadows do not flicker. They are as steady as the stone from which they bloom. The moonlight, or filtered through a thin layer of retreating clouds, creates a soft focus glow that makes the hard marble look almost liquid, like a frozen lake reflecting the indigo depth of the Roman sky. It is a study in the beauty of what remains, the strength of the foundation after the walls and roofs have long since dissolved into memory. A quiet reflection arises in the heart of this marble expanse, a thought on the nature of space and silence. This was once a place of noise, of arguments, of commerce, and of the frantic energy of the day. Now it has found its true purpose as a cathedral of the night. The silence is not a void, but a fullness, a container for the sound of the rain and the slow pulse of the earth. There is a profound relief in seeing how the world eventually returns to this state of equilibrium, where the frantic is replaced by the eternal, and the loud is replaced by the hush of the rain. It is a reminder that we, too, can find our way back to this inner marble floor, a place where the noise of our own lives can be washed away by the steady rhythm of a midnight storm. Near the edge of the basilica, a small fountain, long silent, now fills with the falling rain. The water overflows from its stone lip in a thin, continuous sheet, making a soft, melodic splash as it hits a pile of fallen debris below. The sound is tiny compared to the vastness of the ruins, yet it is perfectly clear, a delicate thread of music in the dark. Beside it, a cluster of wild acanthus plants grows between the cracks of the stone, their large, jagged leaves catching the water and bowing low toward the earth. The rhythm of their movement is hypnotic, a slow, a weighted dip as they gather moisture, followed by a gentle spring upward as the water spills away. The mist continues to swirl in the open air, creating a sense of being inside a soft, grey dream. The boundaries between the stone and the sky are no longer clear. The pillars seem to melt into the mist, and the mist seems to solidify into the stone. This blurring of lines is incredibly restful for the eyes, which no longer need to search for sharp edges or sudden movements. The world is a cohesive whole, a singular environment of blue, grey, and silver. The weight of the night feels like a physical presence, a warm and heavy blanket of air that presses gently against the limbs, urging them to settle, to sink, to let go. In the center of the basilica floor, a single tall pedestal stands alone, its top missing, its purpose forgotten. It stands as a symbol of the beauty of incompletion. It is enough to simply be a part of the night, to stand in the rain and be washed by the moonlight. There is no need for a roof to be a sanctuary. The open sky is a more magnificent ceiling than any architect could conceive. The rain continues its steady, rhythmic work, polishing the marble and nourishing the hidden life of the forum. The tactile sensation of the mist on the face is like 1,000 tiny, cool touches, each one a reminder of the present moment. The mind stops reaching for the past or the future and settles into the sound of the shh of the rain on the stone. The body feels heavy, as if it were made of the same ancient limestone as the ruins, rooted deeply into the Roman soil. The pulse slows. The thoughts become as thin and translucent as the mist. A hand the spirit finds a home in the monumental silence of the basilica. Julia, as we prepare to leave this open space and move toward the final ascent of the hill, a sense of completion begins to settle over the journey. The world is perfectly aligned. The moon, the rain, the stone, and the breath. The night is a vast, cooling embrace, and the marble floor is a steady, unyielding path toward a deeper and more profound state of rest. The shadows grow longer, the light grows softer, and the silence grows deeper as the heart of the forum breathes in the cool midnight air, leaving the expansive marble floor of the basilica behind. Our journey begins a slow, deliberate ascent along a winding path that hugs the lower slope of the Palatine Hill. This is the transition from the structured geometry of the city center to the soft, overgrown intimacy of the rising earth. Here, the ruins are less like monuments and more like quiet companions nestled within the landscape. The soundscape undergoes a delicate transformation. The wide, shushing whisper of rain on flat marble is replaced by a more varied, textured chorus. There is the soft, rhythmic thud of heavy droplets hitting the broad leaves of ancient acanthus, and the muffled, velvet sound of water sinking into thick beds of moss that have claimed the fallen stones as their own. The air here feels noticeably denser, rich with the life of the hillside. So the scent is a heady, grounding mixture of wet soil, crushed pine needles, and the deep, green aroma of ivy that has woven itself into the very fabric of the brickwork. It is a fragrance that speaks of endurance, not just the endurance of stone, but the quiet, persistent power of the earth to reclaim and cradle what has been built upon it. The temperature remains a refreshing, steady cool, though here, sheltered by the rising terrain and the overhang of dark trees, the wind is reduced to a mere sigh. a gentle movement of air that carries the fine mist against the skin like a soft, damp cloth. As the path climbs, we encounter a series of low, crumbling walls that once formed the foundations of garden terraces. These stones are rougher than the polished marble of the forum below, at their surfaces a tapestry of weathered pits and silver-grey lichen. In the midnight light, the lichen seems to glow with a faint, bioluminescent quality, catching the moonlight and holding it in tiny, frosted patches. To run a hand along these stones would be to feel the history of the world in miniature, the ridges of the rock, the softness of the moss, and the slick, cold film of the rain. It is a tactile journey that slows the pulse, a grounding exercise that reminds the body of its connection to the physical world. The visual rhythm of this ascent is one of gentle curves and soft edges. The straight lines of the columns are now viewed from a distance, filtered through the dark, weeping branches of umbrella pines and the tangled webs of climbing vines. The moon, partially obscured by the crest of the hill, casts long, raking shadows that stretch across the path like dark ribbons of silk. These shadows are not empty. They are filled with the subtle textures of the night, the shimmer of a wet leaf, the glint of a pebble, the slow-motion tumble of a raindrop from a high branch to the soft mud below. Every movement is deliberate. Every change in light is a gradual fade rather than a sharp transition. A quiet reflection settles into the mind as we pause by a small, arched alcove carved directly into the hillside. This space was once a cool retreat from the summer sun, a place for contemplation and rest. Now, in the heart of the rainy night, it serves the same purpose. It is a reminder that the need for sanctuary is a timeless human constant. Just as the ancient Romans sought the coolness of the stone, we seek the quiet of the night to find our own center. While the alcove is dry inside, its ceiling a dark vault of ancient brick that smells of dust and old, quiet air. Looking out from this shelter, the rain creates a shimmering curtain across the opening, a liquid screen that separates the stillness within from the movement without. It is a place of absolute safety, a pocket of the world where nothing is expected of us. The tactile process of the rain continues its mesmerizing work. Along the path, a small trickle of water has formed a miniature stream, navigating the uneven stones with a low, melodic gurgle. It carries with it tiny fragments of the hill, bits of terracotta, small twigs, and grains of dark sand, depositing them in the hollows of the path in a slow, natural reorganization of the world. Watching this process is like watching the gears of a great, silent clock. As there is no urgency to the water's journey, it simply follows the pull of the earth, taking the easiest route, moving with a grace that we can mirror in our own descent towards sleep. The mist on the Palatine slope is thicker here, caught by the vegetation and held close to the ground. It swirls around the bases of the trees in slow, languid patterns, mimicking the breath of the hill itself. The trees, mostly dark ilex and pine, stand as silent observers, their needles catching the moisture until they are heavy enough to bow. When a branch finally releases its load, the sound is a soft, wet splap against the mossy ground, followed by the slow, springy return of the wood to its original position. This cycle of tension and release is a natural lullaby, a physical representation of the way the body lets go of its burdens at the end of the day. The colors of the night have deepened into a palette of charcoal, forest green, and slate blue. The white marble of the distance is now just a memory, replaced by the earthy tones of the hillside. This shift toward the darker end of the spectrum is a signal to the brain that the time for observation is coming to a close. The eyes no longer need to interpret complex shapes or bright lights. They can rest on the soft, blurred silhouettes of the trees and the steady, dark gray of the path. The world is receding, pulling back its details until only the most essential sensations remain. The cool air, the scent of the earth, and the sound of the falling rain. As the path levels out onto a small plateau, we look back toward the forum. From this vantage point, the ruins look like a sunken city of silver, drowned in the mist and the moonlight. The great arches and pillars are reduced to elegant shadows, floating in a sea of indigo vapor. It is a view of profound peace, a realization that even the greatest structures of human ambition eventually find their rest in the quiet embrace of nature. There is a great comfort in this surrender. The weight of history is not a burden here, but a sturdy foundation upon which we can lay down our own thoughts. The body feels increasingly heavy, a pleasant lethargy that starts in the feet and moves upward, following the path of the rain as it sinks into the earth. The rhythm of the walking has become a slow, rhythmic sway, a movement that requires no thought and no effort. The hill is holding us, providing a stable and ancient sanctuary where the only requirement is to be present and to breathe. The air is so clean, so pure, that each breath feels like it is washing the inside of the mind, clearing away the clutter of the day and replacing it with the cool, dark silence of the Roman night. The rain has settled into a consistent, gentle hum, a sound that has no beginning and no end. It is the sound of the universe at rest, a white noise that blankets every worry and every stray thought. Here, on the mossy path toward the heights, the world is perfectly balanced between the sky and the stone. We are a part of this balance, a single point of awareness in a vast, tranquil landscape. The shadows are our blankets, the mist is our veil, and the ancient stone is our pillow. As we reach the higher terraces of the Palatine Hill, the steep ascent levels into a series of wide, grassy plateaus. that overlook the sleeping heart of the forum. Here, the world feels even more removed, as if we have climbed above the very concept of time. The rain, which had been a textured chorus among the trees and stones below, has softened into a consistent, sleepy hum. It is no longer a collection of individual drops, but a seamless, atmospheric presence, a fine, silver gray vibration that fills the space between the dark earth and the indigo sky. The sound is an unwavering, monochromatic drone, a natural white noise that seems to vibrate within the very marrow of the bones, calling for an absolute surrender to the night. The air at this elevation is exquisitely pure, washed clean by the hours of steady rainfall, but it carries a new sensory layer, the scent of ancient, water-soaked timber and the faint, sweet musk of wet, wild grass. This is the aroma of a landscape at rest, a fragrance that suggests a deep, subterranean satisfaction. The temperature has found its perfect equilibrium, a crisp, bracing coolness that makes the warmth of one's own breath a visible, fleeting comfort in the dark. Every inhalation feels like a cleansing draught of mountain air, reaching into the furthest corners of the mind to sweep away the last lingering remnants of the day's concerns. Below us, the ruins we have traversed appear as soft, blurred shapes in a sea of luminous fog. The arch of Septimius Severus and the pillars of Saturn are mere suggestions of strength, their sharp lines dissolved by the moisture-laden air. From this height, the grand history of Rome looks like a quiet, domestic garden, a place where the stone has finally found its rest. This shift in perspective brings a profound sense of relief. When viewed from above, the monumental becomes intimate, and the complex becomes simple. It is a visual metaphor for the state of the mind as it nears sleep. The towering problems of the waking world shrink into small, manageable shadows, eventually fading into the background of a much larger, more peaceful landscape. On this plateau, we find ourselves near the remains of a long-forgotten portico. The floor is a mosaic of humble clay tiles and smooth river stones, now gleaming with a thin, dark glaze of water. A few stray marble fragments, perhaps once part of a decorative frieze, lie scattered in the grass like fallen stars. To imagine the tactile sensation of this place is to feel the soft, yielding dampness of the earth beneath the feet, contrasted with the unyielding, cold stability of the buried stone. There is a rhythmic pleasure in the slow, deliberate movement of weight from one step to the next, a process that requires no more thought than the falling of the rain itself. The visual palette has transitioned into a world of deep, saturated charcoal and the palest, most ghostly grays. The moon is now a hidden source of light, its presence felt only by the way the edges of the clouds glow with a dull, pearlescent sheen. This lack of direct light is an invitation to the eyes to stop searching There are no horizons to scan, no details to scrutinize. The world has become a soft focus dream, a monochromatic sanctuary where the only movement is the slow or vertical descent of the rain and the horizontal drift of the mist. It is an environment designed for the cessation of effort. A quiet reflection arises, shimmering like the wet stone, a thought on the beauty of the fading storm. Just as the rain is beginning to taper off into a fine, mist-like drizzle, so too is the energy of the journey beginning to consolidate into a single point of stillness. There is a specific kind of peace found in the after, the moment when the intensity of a thing has passed, leaving behind a world that is refreshed, cooled, and quieted. The storm has done its work, the dust is settled, the stone is washed, and the earth is full. We too have done our work of walking and witnessing. There is nothing left to do but witness the fading of the echo. In a sheltered corner of the plateau, under the protective reach of a massive dark ilex tree, the ground remains almost dry. The needles form a thick, springy carpet that smells of resin and old shadows. Sitting here, one can listen to the rain hitting the canopy above, a rapid, rhythmic tapping that never reaches the forest floor. It is the sound of being protected, of being held in a dry, safe pocket, while the rest of the world is cleansed. The contrast between the wet, silver world outside and the dark, dry sanctuary of the tree is a powerful signal of security. It is the ultimate feeling of home found in the middle of an ancient wilderness. The mist on the hill begins to settle into the hollows, turning the landscape into a series of soft, rolling waves of gray. The pillars in the distance seem to sink into these waves, are disappearing and reappearing as the vapor moves in slow, languid patterns. The rhythm of this movement is identical to the rhythm of slow, deep breathing. With every drift of the mist, the body feels a little heavier, a little more settled into the lap of the palatine. The muscles of the neck and shoulders, once tight with the urgency of the day, now feel as loose and fluid as the water running down the hillside. Tactile details continue to ground the experience. The feeling of a stray raindrop hitting the back of the hand, the cool sensation of the wind as it brushes past the ear, the solid pressure of the earth supporting the spine. These are the anchors of the present moment. They prevent the mind from drifting back to the world of before and keep it rooted in the now. The world is reduced to these few gentle sensations. The grand narrative of the Roman Forum has narrowed down to the sound of a single leaf dripping onto the moss. As the light fades even further, the indigo sky deepens into a true velvet black. The clouds are no longer distinct shapes, but a continuous, heavy curtain that blankets the world in a warm, dark silence. The rain has reached its most consistent, soothing state, a fine, persistent hum that signals a long, uninterrupted night of replenishment. The journey is nearly complete. The ascent has been made, the heights have been reached, and the sanctuary has been found. The world is at rest, the stones are cooling, and the night is holding its breath in anticipation of the final, deepest silence. The sense of completion is absolute, like the stone basins below that have overflowed and then found their level. But the spirit has found its equilibrium. The weight of the night is a kind weight, a pressure that feels like a protective hand, guiding the senses toward a state of total release. The hill is steady, the rain is soft, and the darkness is a kind, wide open door. As the final hour of midnight deepens, the journey through the Roman Forum reaches its most profound and quietest plateau. We have climbed the Palatine. We have witnessed the silver rain upon the ancient marble. And now we find ourselves at the very edge of the hill, where the ruins of the great imperial palaces dissolve into the natural contours of the rising earth. In this ultimate sanctuary, the rain has finally begun to soften, transitioning from a rhythmic hum into a delicate, consistent mist. A fine, weightless vapor that hangs in the air like a long, slow breath held in the dark. The sound is no longer a collection of distinct impacts, but a pure, uninterrupted white noise that blankets the world in a total velvety silence. The atmosphere here is one of absolute completion. The air, cooled by the hours of steady rain, carries the deep, grounding scent of ancient stone mixed with the fresh, clean aroma of the midnight mist. It is a fragrance that speaks of ancient roots and the quiet, persistent growth of the night. There is no longer the sharp tang of wet brick or the metallic scent of bronze. Those have been washed away, leaving only the neutral, calming essence of the earth itself. The temperature has settled into a perfect, bracing chill, a sensation that makes the heavy warmth of a blanket feel like the most natural destination in the world. As we look out from this high vantage point, the Roman Forum below has disappeared entirely into a sea of deep indigo shadows and silver fog. The massive pillars, the grand arches, and the long basalt roads are now only suggestions, ghostly shapes floating in a dreamscape of water and memory. All the modern city beyond the walls is gone, its lights extinguished by the density of the mist and the sheer weight of the history that surrounds us. There is only this moment, this height, and this profound, unshakable stillness. It is a visual representation of the mind's own transition, where the structures of the day, once so prominent and demanding, have faded into the soft, blurred background of a restorative night. The tactile details of this final scene are the most soothing of all. Near the edge of a weathered stone overlook, a thick carpet of dark green moss has claimed a fallen column as its own. To touch this moss is to feel the most delicate of velvet, saturated with the cool, life-giving moisture of the storm. The stone beneath is solid, a permanent and unyielding foundation that has remained unmoved for millennia. Oh, there is a deep physical comfort in this contrast. The soft and the hard, the living and the eternal, all held together in the cooling embrace of the dark. The body feels heavy, as if it was sinking into the very substance of the hill, shedding the last remnants of effort and intention. The visual palette has reached its most minimalist state. The world is a study in charcoal, slate, and the deepest, most restful black. The moon is a memory, its light filtered through so many layers of mist and cloud that it has become a pervasive, shadowless glow. This lack of contrast is a final invitation for the eyes to close. There is nothing more to see, no more patterns to recognize, and no more horizons to scan. The world has contracted into the space of a single breath, a slow, a rhythmic movement of air that matches the gentle drift of the mist through the ruins. A final reflection settles into the spirit, as soft as the settling dew. A thought on the beauty of surrender. Throughout this stroll, we have seen the forum surrender to the rain, the stone surrender to the moss, and the day surrender to the night. There is no loss in this letting go. Instead, there is a profound replenishment. To surrender is to return to the source, to allow the elements to wash away the dust of the world and reveal the steady, beautiful foundation that lies beneath. The ruins are not broken. They are simply at rest, participating in a cycle of time that is much larger than any single human life. We are part of that cycle too. Like the rain falling into the Tiber, we are returning to a state of flow, of ease, and of quiet belonging. In the deepest shadows of a nearby alcove, a single drop of water falls from a high, vine-covered arch. It takes a long time to gather, hanging as a perfect, crystalline sphere, before gravity finally claims it. When it hits the surface of a small, dark pool at the base of the stone, the sound is a tiny, clear chime that echoes once and then vanishes into the silence. This is the only clock that remains, the slow, liquid heartbeat of the Roman night. One drop, then stillness, another drop, then a deeper stillness. The intervals between the sounds grow longer and longer, pulling the consciousness further away from the surface of the world. The mist continues to thicken, turning the air into a physical embrace. It feels like a soft, damp veil that protects the sanctuary from any intrusion of the waking world. Inside this veil, time has stopped. There is no past to reflect upon and no future to prepare for. There is only the cool, dark present. The body is now indistinguishable from the hill, heavy, settled, and completely at peace. The pulse has slowed to a rhythmic, subterranean thrum, a vibration that is in perfect harmony with the ancient earth. The final lingering shots of the moonlit ruins provide a peaceful anchor. The shadows of the pillars stretch out like long protective arms, tucking the world into bed. The rain has almost entirely ceased, leaving behind a world that is perfectly clean and perfectly quiet. The only sound that remains is the sound of the night breathing, a low, rhythmic sigh that carries the scent of stone and sky. The journey is finished. The destination has been reached. The sense of release is now total. Every muscle has uncurled, every thought has dissolved, and every breath is a step deeper into the dark. The Roman Forum, with all its history and its grandeur, is now just a quiet garden of shadows, waiting for the morning that is still many hours away. For now, there is only the rest. The deep, restorative rest of the stones, the earth, and the spirit. Sleep well, dream softly, and may the night hold you kindly.